Okay, here we go with episode 1100 Q&A video. This could be a weird one. Starting off is about 20 minutes. I was trying to do a comment corner. This is why I never get around to a comment corner. I was trying to do a goddamn comment corner and ended up answering one question for 20 minutes. So I'm making that part of this video. That'll be the first thing you see. And then I'll come back and I'll be answering questions from the post I put up. Well, let's get back into the Wano arc. Maybe, depending on how many episodes I can record today, I'll be at the end of it. I'm thinking I will, but we'll see. Let's kick off this recording session with some questions from Hunter Stone. I don't know. I almost said questions from Zoro. No, there's a question about Zoro. Actually, two, but no question from Zoro. That would be awesome. If Zoro, if you have any questions for me, I would definitely love to entertain them and talk about them. I could actually talk at length. If you ask me a question, I will definitely talk at length. I promise. So, you seem like a guy who'd rather drink than talk, though. So we can do that too. All right, Hunter's talking about it's interesting you talk about Luffy killing someone because I heard something interesting about that recently. We've never heard him say he won't kill. We have no idea what his stance is on killing his enemies. So maybe he can kill somebody in the future. There's more to that, but let me talk about that first. It's true. You've never heard me say that I love the movie Cloud Atlas, but that doesn't mean I love the movie Cloud Atlas, right? I actually hate it. I think it's one of the worst things ever made. So maybe you have heard me say it, actually, but you know the point I'm making. I'm a big believer in what I'm about to say next. It doesn't matter what you say; it matters what you do. Okay? I've always believed this. People can bump their gums about a lot of shit. That's why I do this, right? Like, I've been doing this since childhood. There's a couple things I talked about in childhood. First of all, there was the thing, like, because there was a lot of fighting, bullies, and all that stuff in school. And I was involved. I was the instigator of a lot of it. Also the recipient of a lot of it. And one of the things I would do, it'd be like, I would take over a locker that's closer to my classroom. And it'd be next to somebody who didn't want somebody in that locker. They wanted it to be an empty locker so they had more room or whatever, and they could use it or something like that. And so they say, you can't take that locker. And I would go, I'd feel my mouth, right? I'd go like this. There's no blood on my mouth, so I guess I didn't do anything wrong. In other words, if I had done something wrong, you would have hit me in the mouth, drew blood, and then, there would be blood on my hand. Okay, I did something wrong. All right, yeah, I did something wrong. I see the blood, right? And that really got under people's skin when I would do this. Must not have done anything wrong. I don't feel any blood. Look, we're 12, okay? That's a 12-year-old thing. No adult is doing that, like, except for me, right? But no adult is sitting there doing that childish ass shit. But, that was one of the things we did, right? The other thing I would do is they would be talking about some shit and say, look, man, either move back to your old locker or I'm going to hit you in the mouth. And I would start this while they're talking. I would be doing this here. This is a puppet, just imagine Kermit outside of this hand, right? Moving the mouth. And they would start saying, hey, if you don't get your locker, if you don't leave that locker and go back to your old locker, I'm going to hit you in the mouth. And I would be doing this while they're talking, and then when I'm talking, of course, I'm not doing it. And then they would talk again, I'd start doing it again. And that would make them want to hit me as well. I was 12. 12-year-olds are immature, 12-year-olds are instigating fights. People swung on me more often for this and for this than for any other reason. Because I was a smartass. But, and so what I'm trying to say to you, though, is that even at 12, I understood the simple core fact that it doesn't matter what you say, it matters what you do. That's all that matters. So, if somebody's every action shows you that they love you and they protect you, it doesn't matter if they say they love you and they want to protect you. Like, say maybe they're not capable of voicing those feelings. They show you with their actions. Or, if somebody shows you they never have time for you, then it doesn't matter that they say, I want to spend time with you. If they never have time for you, then they don't want to spend time with you. Because they're just flapping their gums. They're just busting their gums together to make a noise that doesn't mean jack shit. They might as well be farting, or playing the ukulele. Because if they say they want to spend time with you, but they don't spend time with you, guess what? It matters what they do. It doesn't matter what they say. This has really served me well over the years. I've gotten out of so many bad relationships or possible bad relationships. You look at their actions, and this isn't something I invented. Henry David Thoreau, I think his name is, said, "I'm sorry, I can't hear what you're saying. Your actions are speaking so loud they're drowning out your words." So, and that dude lived 200-300 years ago, right? So this didn't originate with me. It's just I have taken it to heart. So I don't, I guess Luffy hasn't voiced an opinion, but we have not seen him kill anybody, and we have actually seen him whip somebody's ass and then befriend them. And we're talking about animals, and I'm trying to think, there's a couple people this has happened to as well, right? Who the hell was it? Well, he didn't befriend Crocodile, but he definitely worked with him after he whipped his ass. And they have a lot of bad blood. Him and Crocodile, they didn't have a good time together. We've never seen Luffy go for the kill. He hasn't said he won't kill anybody. He hasn't made the Batman declaration. He hasn't said, I refuse to kill. But he also hasn't said he will kill somebody. When he threatens somebody, what does he say? I'm going to kick your ass. He doesn't say, I'm going to kill you. A lot of people, Ellie, Last of Us, other people, other stories, will say, I'll kill you. I'm going to kill you. Now, maybe they ultimately decide not to kill you. There's a lot of revenge. Like I always talk about, For Your Eyes Only is a revenge story, right? It's one of my favorite James Bond movies. She ultimately decides not to kill the person. So, I think. Boy, if I'm wrong about that, then egg on my face. But I'm starting to doubt that now that I say that. I remember James Bond didn't want her to kill somebody. He thought he would change her, right? Anyway, doesn't matter. Either way. Plenty of people say it. Now, whether they do it or not, who knows, right? But they say, I want to kill you, right? Or I will kill you for what you just did, right? They'll say that. Are they going to do it? We don't know. Maybe the story comes to its conclusion. We find out one way or the other. Are they actually going to do it? But actions speak louder than words. We've never seen him go for the kill. And, you can go for the kill and not kill. Like, you're going to kill somebody and they get away or something. We've never seen him do that. And we've never seen him say, I'm going to kill you. We see him say, I'm going to kick your ass. So it seems that all he cares about is kicking somebody's ass, right? And it seems like he doesn't take it personally, from what I've seen. I know there are a couple human beings he has fought that he then befriended. I can't remember who that was. It's been 1,100 episodes, right? Remind me who that was. That has happened, right? There have been people, I don't know if it was Bon Ivy or, I don't think he actually fought Nico Robin. I mean, obviously he fought Usopp, but that's a little bit different. That was like a brotherly fight. But we've seen him encounter people, fight them, kick their asses, and then later befriend them. I don't remember who it was. It's happened. And we've definitely seen it with animals. He does that a lot with animals. He did it with the wolf pack. He did it with all the animals on the 2 years of training. He started off kicking their asses, and eventually they became his buddies and his friends. He's done it with other animals. He ends up riding the animal. First, they're talking shit. There was a bull, I think, in Dressrosa. The bull talked some shit. He hit him in the mouth. And then the bull's like, hey, can we be friends? And he said, okay, right? Essentially. Yeah. So, he doesn't seem to take it personally when he fights somebody. See, me, I take it personally. There's only one person I ever befriended after I fought them as a kid. He was an asshole. He's a bully. But something happened. I think one of his parents died. It might have actually been his mother. Typically, the fathers die. Thinking back, the other people I knew who had a parent died, it was always the father, right? But in this case, I'm pretty sure he was the one that had the mother die. And he just became he became a much better person after. I don't know if there's a one-to-one causality there. Like, maybe she was like a really abhorrent person. I don't know. My point is, of all the people that I fought with, and probably a couple dozen kids I fought with when I was growing up, only one did I ever talk to with any friendliness or befriend. This guy actually, after his mother died, he just became a different person. He started talking to me. He came up to me and apologized for beating me up. And he even said that, like, to make up for it, if anybody ever gave me any trouble, let him know. He would take care of it. And then we just started talking about shit. And he just became a better person. And then he got really sick. I didn't hear exactly what happened. But it was like some kind of drug use. It was some kind of really dangerous drug use. Like sniffing glue or something. I don't think it was that, but it was something weird, right? That gave him lung damage, and I never saw him again. But he's the only one I ever became friendly with out of a couple dozen. So let's just say it was 24 total. One I became friends with, and 23 I didn't want to have anything to do with him after I fought with him. I take that shit personally. When I fight with somebody, if somebody's mean to me, if they're an asshole, we have an argument, I tend to take that very personally and just never want to talk to them again. You know, just I take shit to heart. It's one of my biggest flaws. Is I hold grudges, right? Like, you know, comes from childhood, and you know, people were mean to me, and then I would forgive them, and then they'd be mean to me, and I'd forgive them, and so I just stopped the forgiving phase. Then they couldn't hurt my feelings anymore because I didn't forgive them, and then carried that through the rest of my life. But Luffy doesn't have that. Luffy doesn't take it personally when he fights somebody. Now maybe it's because he always wins. I mean, he's lost a few fights, but like when he loses a fight, typically he comes back and beats him up in the end. Or some version of that. He actually did fight Queen at one point, didn't he? And they got interrupted or something, or Queen won, or I can't remember exactly how that resolved. But they didn't get a chance to fight again. So he may be 0-1 against Queen, you know, and would have beat Queen's ass, but just didn't get the opportunity. But my point is, though, he doesn't take it personally. He can fight somebody, and then tomorrow I'll be cool with them. Like, I remember him saying, somebody was saying something how they had changed their mind and they wanted to be on his side or something. He says, well, if you change your mind, then that's okay. And that was it. I think that was during Dressrosa. I can't remember, but he's like, you know, if you're not an asshole anymore, you're cool with us, and that's okay. And that was it. Like, he wasn't suspicious. He didn't second guess it. He wasn't like, no, I'm still mad at you. He was like, okay, well, if you change your mind, that's okay. And that's it. Like, I remember at the time it blew me away. I couldn't believe he said it. But that's the kind of person he is. Like, I don't think he takes these fights very seriously the way the rest of us do. Like, Queen, I don't think Queen's going to become friends with somebody that fights him, especially if they beat his ass. Who was it? It was Sanji, right? Like, he's not going to become friends with Sanji. Like, if we run into Queen later, he's not going to become friends with Sanji, I don't think. I mean, I guess stranger things have happened. I don't think so. But Luffy would. He'd be like, okay, well, you're a different person now? Okay, that's fine. So, I don't think fighting is anything more than playing to him. It's like playing around. You know, it's like, what would we say? I can't think of an equivalent. But it's fun in games to him. Fighting is fun in games to him. Even though you can die because of the fight. Like, I don't think he thinks about that. I don't think he thinks, hey, if I fight Kato, he might kill me. I don't think that crosses his mind. Now, he may have said some things like, I'm going to fight you to the end or to the death. Or in other words, like, you're going to have to kill me to stop me from fighting you. But I don't know that he has, like, conceptualized what that actually means. I don't think he's sitting there thinking, okay, here's my will. If Kato kills me, here's my last will and testament. And you can have my hat. And you can have any gold I have on the ship, and you have possession of the ship, and you're the next captain. Usopp, you can be the next captain. He doesn't do that. We've never seen him do that. He's not sitting there thinking, I could die. I get in the car to drive somewhere, and I think I could die. It crosses my mind. I'm not, like, petrified or anything, but, like, you know, it crosses my mind. It's possible. I don't think it crosses Luffy's mind. So he's not thinking of fighting his life and death, in my opinion. You know, I don't think that even crosses his mind. And I don't think it would cross his mind to kill somebody. He just wants to whip their ass. And so he can whip your ass today and be friends with you tomorrow. That doesn't strike me as the kind of person who would fight you to the death. You know what I'm saying? So to me, just from what I know about his personality, what I can intuit from his personality, and what I think about his personality, I could be wrong, but just what I think about his personality, he doesn't take fighting that seriously enough for it to cross his mind to kill somebody. We've never seen him threaten to kill somebody, and of course he has not killed anybody in all the fights we've seen. So, put all together, I don't think he would. Could he? Sure. Especially to save somebody's life. Like, for instance, if there's a person that's like, if I stay alive, I'm going to kill Nami. You have to put me in the ground and keep me from killing Nami. And if he knew that, if he can conceptualize that, and knew it for a fact, no matter how many times I beat him up, he will wait till I'm asleep and then he'll kill Nami. I can see him killing somebody in that situation, right? Like, I don't think he's Batman where he would not do it. but it would have to be a very weird, very specific use case, I think. So that's where I landed on all that. I don't think he will in the entire series kill anybody. I don't think it crosses his mind. And I think if the plot needs somebody he's fighting to die, they will die by some other means. The Disney death. Of course, the Disney death is you're fighting them, they back up, and they back up off the cliff and die, right? So the heroine didn't kill them. They just backed up off the cliff. The Seven Dwarves didn't kill the Wicked Witch, the evil stepmother. She ran off a cliff because she was running away from them. So, or something, whatever that was. So, that's what I think will happen here. Now, is Kato dead? That's an interesting question. That's the other part of his question, by the way. Yeah, my 10-minute answer. I've already decided. I guess I'm just going to have to make this a separate video. We're already 17 minutes deep. I'm not making people sit that long through an intro. So I guess we're doing a special Q&A video. Not intended. It wasn't on my logbook, but here we are. Is Kato dead? I think he is. But I've taken to heart what Hunter's told me was nobody who has appeared to be dead in one arc has ever come back to life in the next arc. Things get resolved within the arc. So if we don't see him alive, a hand coming out of the lava, by the end of this arc, he's dead. And by the way, just because now I've decided to put this into the big Q&A video that comes out in a week or two, I'm recording this before I watch episode 182. So this could, presumably the arc will end before the 1100. So just so we know where we are in time and space. So I'm recording this before 182. His hand might come out of the lava this episode for all I know. I think he's dead. I think he should be dead. He wanted to be dead. So if there was a chance for him to save his life by crawling out of lava, maybe he would just lay there and stay and die. Same with Big Mom's, although she wants to live, so I could see her living. But I think they're both dead. And I think they should be both dead. Because they're so goddamn powerful. If they come back just because they got their asses whipped, they could just come back and start the shit again, right? Like, Luffy's gone, and then there'd be nobody in Wano who could stop him. Luffy, they couldn't stop Big Mom or Kato. So they have to be dead. Or they're going to be captured by the Navy. I don't see that happening. I think the Navy would probably just kill him if they get him. Maybe that would be what happens. The Navy kills him. So, my guess is they're dead. I think narratively they have to be dead, but who the hell knows? Like in this show, almost nobody stays dead. Would I be shocked if they come back? No, I wouldn't. Alright, and then the other question he had was, any theories on why Zoro sees the Grim Reaper? He doesn't have any. So, I don't know what's going on there, except it's probably foreshadowing that Zoro's going to die. I've been thinking for a long time Zoro was going to die. I think he will die the greatest swordsman in the world, which means he has to defeat Mihawk, and then will probably die from his injuries of that fight. But before he dies, he will be the greatest swordsman in the world, because until he defeats Mihawk, he isn't the greatest swordsman in the world, right? And so I think he will achieve his dream, and having achieved his dream, he'll die. And I think that's why he keeps seeing the Grim Reaper. The other possibility is that the Grim Reaper is an actual sentient entity who has taken an interest in him and will be at some point wanting to recruit him for something. Because don't forget, when the Going Merry had the spirit that was inside the ship, we saw the foreshadowing where Usopp thought he saw somebody fixing the ship. And that didn't get resolved for 100, 200 episodes later? A really long time later, it finally got resolved. Explained what the hell that was, right? It finally got explained. So, I think the same thing's going to happen here. I don't remember when the first time he saw the Grim Reaper was, but I think whenever that first time was, 200 episodes approximately from that point, we'll get the explanation. So it'll be something like that. And if we're going by the previous example of the ship having a spirit, then that explanation is going to be probably some kind of entity that wants to recruit him as the greatest killer in the world, right? Maybe whoever the greatest killer in the world happens to be at any moment, it'll be, that's who the Grim Reaper goes to. Remind me what episode we first saw the Grim Reaper in. And that would be a clue, maybe. Because, for instance, I think Kato might be the greatest killer in the world. If he only saw the Grim Reaper for the first time after Kato was defeated by Luffy, that would make sense. It would line up, right? But I don't remember when that was. I think it was before that. I think it It was before he got the shot, right? I don't remember. This, in fact, let me see. This was a comment for episode 1065, so it might have been episode 1065 when he saw it. Anyway, that's what I'm thinking there. All right, 2 great questions. Let me go ahead and I'll stop this here. I'll put up the post for people to ask more questions, and this will just be part 1 of my Q&A. So, impromptu. This is the Mickey Mouse operation that I am. What can I say? Okay, so that was a pre-recorded segment I did a few weeks ago. Now we'll go into answering questions from the post I posted. We only got 3 questions, so this is going to be a really short video. Might be my shortest 000. No, I guess it'd be 2 zeros. 400, 500, 600. This will be my shortest 00 Q&A I've ever had because we only got 3 questions. So I do have a couple of polls I'm going to talk about after those questions, but let's go ahead and get to the questions. All right, Hunter Stone, since it didn't win your podcast topic, I'm going to ask what your review of the Wano arc is. I've now had a week and a half since I've watched any of this. Almost 2 weeks, probably. It's been able to settle in my mind. I've been able to kind of look at it. I've also, you can see here, I just finished watching the Red movie, which will be coming out at the same time as this post. Really, really enjoyed that. I was a little confused in the timing of that because it seems to be happening after the Wano arc. Because Nami has Zeus in her staff, or whatever, her weather stick. But Big Mom is still alive and she's still conducting operations as if it was before the Wano arc had started. So, now I know the movie's not canon. So we can probably assume it's just an alternate reality version. Like there's parallel realities. This is just an alternate reality where Big Mom never showed up at Wano. It ended sooner, and then everybody was able to just go to... Also, I think, didn't Jinbe join them in Wano? So it must be like an alternate reality, because we didn't see any of Kato's people show up. We didn't see any Blackbeard's people show up, but we had Big Mom and Shanks, right? So this was probably just an alternate reality universe where Big Mom didn't show up at Wano. She never chased Luffy there. She was doing her own thing, maybe distracted by something else. For all we know, Whole Cake Island didn't even happen. Probably, though, because they do have Jinbe and they do have Zeus. So, I don't know. It's interesting to think about. It doesn't matter. Who gives a shit? Good stories are good stories, right? It really doesn't matter. Speaking of good stories, the Wano arc was good. You know, I think it was too long. I think my biggest complaints about the arc that I had during the arc were vindicated in the end. I've already talked about that somewhere else where I talked about how Big Mom's amnesia felt stupid and unnecessary. I think they got vindicated in the end. You know, and bringing the Orochi Shogun, whatever his name was, back to life felt stupid and unnecessary, but that worked thematically. His fruit powers, you know, definitely explained it, and he had a much more satisfying death later. It was bringing the artist back to life that is my biggest bone of contention, because the only function he served in the story after that was one good cliffhanger where, you know, Odin shows up and we're wondering what the hell's going on. It was a nice cliffhanger. It was good. It was, I mean, since you brought him back to life, at least we got something out of it. We could have lived without that. And then the fire creature he created. But he could have created the fire creature as he lay dying. You could have had him laying there dying in his one final gasp. Master, let me perform one final act for you as an actor, you know, let me create this fire monster. And then everything that happens there still happens, right? He rampages through the castle and finally goes up to the Shogun and kills it. Helps kill him anyway. I think Shogun's head gets taken off, but it does burn him, right? So, I just stand by that. So, but mostly the things I complained about in the arc were vindicated. It was just too goddamn long. It's that simple. And, you know, this has been stated. It was stated to me before I noticed it. Somebody said this, I think it was before even the time skip. It may have been shortly after the time skip or something. Somebody said this to me. I can't remember who it was. But it was stated that the author fell in love with side characters. He had gotten tired of doing the Straw Hats characterizations, flashbacks, interactions, character growth. After about 10 or 15 years, he was just tired of it. Understandable. And so he became enamored with new characters because it's something new. Something new to draw, something new to talk about, something new to explore backstory-wise and character interactions, all that stuff. So each arc now is going to have some guest star basically take over the arc. And the rule in TV writing and I've heard this from successful, Sean Pillar was the one, successful TV showrunners told me this directly, that the key to guest stars in TV shows is they should always be in service of the main characters. They should never take over the show. You shouldn't have the show then suddenly become about the guest star. It may seem like it's about the guest star, but it's still really about the main characters. So if the guest star is a character's sister, it'll reveal something about the character's backstory, or the way they feel about family, or maybe they prefer family over blood family, or whatever. It's going to reveal something about the main characters. That's the job of guest stars. They come in service of the main characters. That's just the way TV show writing works. You can't write a TV show like you'd write a movie or like you'd write a novel. A novel, you can have a different star each chapter if you want to. There's so many different ways to do a novel. There's so much more time to explore other characters. Stephen King will have somebody, we'll learn everything about that sumbitch, and literally all they're doing is handing a plate of pizza to somebody, and then they leave and we never see the character again. And Stephen King will tell us their entire biography, everything about him. You can do that in novels. It doesn't really work in TV shows. And so it's really the only major flaw in this series. The series is a masterpiece. I'm sure the original manga is a masterpiece. You know, seems to be a faithful adaptation of it. So that's the biggest flaw, is that he is becoming enamored with the guest stars and he lets them take over. Now, I'm not far enough into the new arc. I guess I'll call it Future Arc. I don't know what it's called. Vegapunk arc, maybe. But I assume the Vegapunk characters are probably going to be major characters. One of them is probably going to take over. If I had to guess, it'd probably be the female Vegapunk, but it could be any of them, right? The first one is a strong possibility as well. And then you got Vegapunk himself. Is going to be a major character. And it's earned because it has been foreshadowed for so long, and he's been talked about for so long, and he's had such a major impact on the world. I get that, right? But that's why you don't have Toy Soldier and her father, or his daughter, to have such a major role in Dressrosa, and that's why you don't have two different kids have such a major role in Wano. You know, like, you could have merged those two. There's two different kids that have a relevance in the plot. You could have merged those two characters. At the same time, it's about streamlining, man. You know, like, it's just, he's got mission creep when it comes to storytelling. He's having fun. He can do whatever the hell he wants. It's his thing, and it is a masterpiece, and he is a genius. He can do whatever the hell he wants. I'm just saying, as an objective critic, that's what I think. Which is what I'm being asked about, what I think. So, yeah, I like it. It's not my favorite arc, but I do really like it, and it has a major impact on the story. Now we're in the final saga for a reason, right? You know, because of what happened in Wano. And so many interesting little tidbits and stuff. It was a lot of fun. That's really the bottom line. Also from Hunterstone, you are officially now in the final saga of One Piece. Any thoughts on that? Any theories or ideas you want to put out there in the world before something gets revealed? And lastly, how many episodes do you think it will go on for? Well, we're at 1,100 right now. We've got 33, probably 34 by now. I think an episode just dropped a couple days ago. So, I would just literally just be making up a number. I mean, who the hell knows? Hunter said somewhere else he thinks the Falling Action will be 30 episodes by itself, right? So we're probably talking about 300-400 episodes. You know, I mean, it's the final saga, which means more than one story arc. This story arc here is probably going to be 100 minimum, maybe 120. I don't think it's going to be as long as Wano. I don't think we have as many moving pieces. We had all the samurai shit to deal with. Those were entire episodes just dealing with the samurai shit, and then we had the two emperors and everything, right? Here, so far, we don't have any of that. Now, we could have Navy coming in. We could have an Emperor coming in. So, who the hell knows? But I don't think there's as much to work with. And why one of the reasons Wano was so long is you had so many different characters in service, and we don't have that yet here. Where that was baked in, coming into the arc, we had that, right? So, I think probably 100 for this arc. And then another story arc maybe will be like, you know, the final battle type story arc, getting to the One Piece and having to fight people to get there. That's probably going to be 250 episodes by itself, right? Just all that stuff. And so that's 350 right there. Then, like you said, Falling Action and you know, resolving all the character storylines and all that stuff. So probably it's going to be more like 400, 450, I would think. to finish this out. That's just really just pulling numbers out of my ass. But I think they're reasonable numbers. I don't think that's just completely fabricated. So at this rate, we're getting, what, about 30 episodes a year? 300 is 10 more years? Of course, if the manga finishes, they don't have to worry about catching up to the manga anymore. They can produce more episodes a year, right? And probably would want to, because the steam is going to come out of the fandom a little bit after the manga's finished. You know, I think you're going to see a drop in ratings simply because people have read the manga, and then maybe if they don't like it, they won't watch, or they'll be like, well, I'll catch up when the series is over. I don't want to watch week to week. So you probably see the ratings drop. So maybe they can they'll go back up to 45, 50 episodes a year, because they don't have to worry about that shit anymore. You know, so then we could be talking about 10 years for 400 episodes. But that would have to be after the manga finishes. And I don't see that happening probably at least for 5 years, right? So, yeah, that's what it's looking like. As far as the final saga, well, you know, here's the thing. You know, we've talked about this before. I know the movie Red isn't canon, but it had, you know, Shanks in it. And so he's kind of in the forefront of my mind now. The way I see it, you have, how many major obstacles do we have to the One Piece? Okay, Shanks wants the One Piece. Blackbeard wants the One Piece. Does anybody else, well, I guess you could say Law, Captain Crunch, and Luffy, even though they're loosely affiliated with each other, they all kind of, so that's 5 different factions on the pirate side want the One Piece. Okay. Now, looking on the other side, you have the Admiralty who wants to prevent the One Piece from being, you know, taken. So they're gonna do anything, I think, to prevent it. Which begs the question: why don't they just blow up the island from space? We've already seen that they can do that, right? Why don't they just do that? And then nobody ever gets One Piece. So something must be preventing that. We don't know what. But if we're talking about, like, you know, an obstacle, a person you have to fight to get to it, you've got the Admiralty. So you've got the 3 admirals, and then you've got Lava Bitch, and I think we would see at least one elder there as well, personally taking command in the field and personally fighting. Probably the dude with the sword. We always see him with the sword. I think that this has reached a level, if they're in danger of getting to One Piece and it's more than one of these factions is there, then I think you would see an elder in command on the field and ready to fight. So that's going to be a major deal. So really, how many of these people is Luffy going to have to get through? Like, you can see Shanks and Blackbeard facing off. And if Shanks is good, then Blackbeard has to kill Shanks. That's the only way to prevent Shanks from getting there before Luffy does, unless they get there together. I can see them getting there together, but, you know, for Luffy to be king of the pirates, Shanks would have to get there with Luffy, and then back off and say, I'm allowing you to be king of the pirates. Does that feel narratively satisfying? No, I think Shanks has to go. It's also part of the hero's journey. Even though he hasn't really been a mentor to Luffy, you still kind of got to lose that father figure. If Shanks is good, Blackbeard has to kill him before we get to the end. If Shanks is evil, then Luffy's going to have to fight him, right? Which means Shanks will kill Blackbeard. I think either way, that's going to happen. And it would be narratively satisfying to have Shanks kill Blackbeard, because Blackbeard is the yin and yang of Luffy. He's been on a similar character arc to Luffy. So that's interesting, right? I think that's what's going to happen. I think Shanks is evil, and that's going to be a massive betrayal to Luffy, because we just saw again in this movie how nobody will believe Shanks is evil. So I think Shanks is evil. He will kill Blackbeard, and then he's going to face off against Luffy. And he could even have the flag of, I'm doing this to save the people. Nobody else should get to One Piece because it's too dangerous in anybody else's hands. So I'm doing this to save the world. Blah, blah, blah. He's still... If he's saying some shit like he'll kill Luffy to keep him from getting to One Piece to save the world, then he's evil, right? Like, from our point of view. The question is, if Shanks turns evil, Does that turn off people from loving the series? Will they stop rewatching the series, rereading the series? They like, F this. Screw this book. Screw this series because I like Shanks and they ruined my favorite character. Character assassination, that word will be thrown around all over the place. People will be pissed off. The idea I had for a TV series, which is like a fantasy type TV series, a fantasy adventure. Think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the Middle Ages with magic. And it would be an ensemble. You'd have 7 main characters. And I had the plan for all 6 seasons, right? And they're trying to... There's like a certain number of people... I don't want to get too bogged down in this, but just so you understand what's happening. There's a certain number of people, and then that was going to depend on how many episodes of the season I was going to be given, right? As I was pitching this, right? But there's going to be a certain number of people in the world that had to die in order for you to open up a portal. These are the people preventing the portal from being open. Where you open up a portal to another world, which is like heaven. You can open up a portal to heaven and get whatever you want. It's like you can get the wish or whatever. You can get whatever you want. And so, like, say 20 people had to die for this. So there's some people, a lot of people are trying to go kill all these 20 people, and then our heroes are trying to prevent it, right? And yet some people are doing it for religious reasons. That religiously believe we need to open this portal because it's God's going to be inside the portal. It'd be at literal heaven. Other people believe it's just going to be treasure in this portal. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions, right? And so as we progress through the story, of course, we lose some of these 20 people. You can't save them all. And one of those 20 people is going to be a member of our team. I said there's going to be like 7 people, right, in our team. One of those 20 people is a member of the team, okay? That member dies at the end of season 3. It's very tragic, very sad. The other 6 people are very depressed by it and sad and upset. But you have the 6 left. At the end of season 5, there's only a couple people left that have to be killed, right? For it to open this portal. And we reveal one of our 6 was a big bad. He was the one behind all the religious fanatics. We've been fighting these religious fanatics for 5 seasons. And one of our 6 was that dude. And then you would go back and look back through the whole course of the series. This is why I had to plan the whole thing out, right? And you see all these times where he did things that helped the religious people. It looked like a mistake. He dropped his gun. He slipped and knocked somebody off the stairs. He got knocked out. He's alone with one other person. Later that person, comes back and he's like, "Whoa, man, I really thought I killed him." All these clues would kind of slip by the audience. You think it's just a natural course of events. Cost of doing business. Come to find out, he was behind it all. And he's the one who killed the one character we loved at the end of season 3. He was the one who did it, right? It's all revealed at the end of season 5. It was going to be really epic, and the way I was going to frame that, it was going to be like a 2-part finale. At the beginning of that 2-part finale, we were going to accuse the big bad of being the big bad. And then none of the team would believe it, right? So they're defending him. Come to find out somebody had framed him because they had their own means. There's other factions going on right here. They didn't know he was a big bad. They just framed one of the team members, happened to be the big bad. And so the whole couple episodes you're wondering, is he not? Then you realize he's not because he'd been framed, and we got the guy who framed him, and we killed the guy who framed him and everything. So everything's cool. And then right after that you revealed he actually is the big bad. So there's going to be a huge punch in the nuts. It's a character you love for 5 seasons. Think of like one of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., like one of the main core members of the team. They did something like the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They did that after 17 episodes. I'm talking about 50 episodes if it's 10 episode seasons, more than that if it's 12 to 13 episode seasons. You find out this person you loved, and you've been shipping with all these other characters and following all the heroics, and he's such an awesome dude. Everybody loves him. Finds out he's the big bad. He's the evil. He's been hurting us all along, killing people we love, right? The network hated that idea. They said you would alienate your audience, and the audience would hate you, and it would destroy the rewatchability. You wouldn't be able to syndicate this series. Nobody would rewatch this series because they'd be so pissed off that their favorite character is evil. Personally, I would love that. I would love to watch a show and be rooting for this guy. This happened. I'm not going to tell you what show it is. But a show I watched. And they did the reveal after 2 seasons because they got canceled after 2 seasons. But man, they had one of the main core characters turn out to be a big bad. And I loved that so much. Absolutely loved it. Now, my pitch happened before I saw that. But I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I'm trying to do. And then the network was kind of right because, people did hate him. People were pissed off. I just think it's so cool. Like, you recontextualize everything. You'd have to immediately rewatch the series, and you see all the places he did that. You're filling in the blanks. You're mentally writing scenes of, okay, this must have been what was really happening. This is what we thought was happening at the time. This is what really happened. And then you even have a complexion where he does like these people he's with, right? These other five people, and even like the person he had to kill. Like you go through all these adventures with all these people. You're a human being. You're gonna have affection for these people, but then you have this religious mission you've been on your whole life. That's why you're the big bad. So you be committed to it, right? So there'd be all that, like nuance and layers and conflict, the human heart in conflict with itself, right? But the network was absolutely convinced this would never work. It would destroy the series. And there'd be huge fan backlash, and the ratings would drop like a stone. And they rejected the project just on that alone. Yeah, that was as far as I got my pitch. The final season is going to be crazy, by the way. And it's going to be epic because when the other team members finally realized that he was a big bad, it's going to be great shit. But, you know where I'm going with all this, right? Would that happen if Shanks turns out to be evil? Would there be a massive fan backlash and ratings drop and people burning their manga issues, and you'd have to have a really big pile, I guess, on TikTok and all this shit, and just rejecting the show and hating the show? Would all that happen? Probably. And, I know that the author is allowed to do whatever the hell he wants. It sounds like they don't pay him shit. Somebody told me they only pay him 1%, that he's made like $100 million and they've made $1 billion off him or whatever. Ridiculous. But I assume, like, with that low paycheck comes he can do whatever the hell he wants creatively. But I wonder, does the author have the balls to do that? Does the studio have the balls to do it? Does the publisher have the balls to do it? Would he be strongly urged to go a different direction? So you factor all that in. While I think it would be perfect and awesome, especially since we really haven't spent any time with Shanks, it'd be better and more awesome if we had spent a lot of time with him. Like, for instance, if it was Law, who turns out to be the big bad. If he turns evil and he just really is just a cold-blooded psychopath, never cared about anybody, it'd be amazing, considering how much time we spent with him. I'm into that. I think that's really interesting, and we just don't see it that often. Usually the lines are drawn in the sand. We know who's on what side. But if you make me commit to an answer, I don't think they're going to have Shanks be evil, which means Blackbeard has to kill him. And then that's going to be the heavy motivating factor. Maybe we'll see Luffy catch his first body, like actually catch a body, like actually rip somebody's head off, rip their heart out. Unambiguous murder. Like, they're done, they give up, and he still kills them. Like, he could be that pissed off in a fit of rage. Probably not. They're not going to. That would also be character assassination, I believe, but we could see it, right? So, ultimately, I think the way it's going to play out, Blackbeard's going to kill Shanks, and then he and Luffy and probably Law. I don't think Captain Crunch is going to kind of fall along the wayside somewhere. Maybe be taken out by one of the admirals, because they need to catch a body. The admirals have just been disgraced. Like, they're getting their ass kicked every time. Every time they run into Shanks, I know the movie is a canon, they bend over and take it up the ass. Like, every time. The admirals, the Navy needs a win. They need to kill somebody who matters. And Captain Crunch barely matters. So I can see that. I can also see them killing Law, right? That's possible. So, I think bottom line, it's going to be Law, Luffy, and Cruz, of course. Whoever's left in the Cruz. Law, Luffy, Blackbeard, the Admiralty, Sword Boy from the Elders, all there on the island for a final battle. You notice I haven't mentioned Buggy and Mihawk and, who's the third person in that group? There's two people who actually matter. I can't remember. It's Mihawk, some other person. I literally cannot summon up anything about whoever the other pirate was. But they were also scary. Whoever the hell it was. It was those two and Buggy. I see them, like, not necessarily falling by the wayside. They might be involved here. It would be thematically interesting to have Buggy and Shanks end up on the island when neither one of them was able to get there the first time. At the same time. So they might show up. And maybe that's where Zoro would defeat Mihawk, right? So, yeah, that's kind of what I think's going to. I think that this is the general tapestry, really broad strokes of how it's going to play out. There's obviously shit we don't know. Other shit needs to happen. We need to find the other roadmap stone. who the hell knows where that's going to be or where they find it. Vegapunk's probably going to give them tools they need to, carry on all this stuff. So, broad strokes, I think it's going to play out like that. All right, Kaz Imk. I keep wanting to say Kaz Mink, but that's not how the letters are arranged. But you know what I mean. Damn, last one for a while, I'm guessing. I might have a few questions, but for now, I'll just ask this one, which is, what do you think of Gear 5, and do you think it takes away from any seriousness of fights going forward? Well, it's interesting because it changes the algebra, right? This show has one of the better rubber bands I've ever seen. Okay, Eureka started out ridiculous, so it gets more and more ridiculous. Who cares? Even though they did do drama, it's kind of like they lost the drama along the way. But yeah, they always did drama. So that's an example of a show that has a large rubber band. X-Files had a large rubber band, probably too large. I think the rubber band got, when you stretch it too far and it's just never snappy again. I think that actually happened with X-Files. They would do their silly comedic episodes, and then you're supposed to take the rest of it seriously. So, but it overall pretty good. It did all right. Stargate SG-1 had a pretty good rubber band. They would do their silly episodes, but it was always framed in a certain kind of way through a certain lens that made it more viable to do that. They were almost like non-canon episodes. We're going to be really stupid this episode. Don't really take this too seriously, and come back next week for the drama, right? That kind of thing. So I just think if anybody was going to have a Looney Tunes ability, it'd be Luffy. He's a silly dude anyway, right? And he never takes anything seriously. He's the guy who's always going to be okay. It's going to work out. He's that guy, right? He's the it's going to work out guy. We all have somebody like that in our lives. It's annoying. And then bad things never seem to happen to him. So, So it works that Luffy would have the dumbest, silliest aspect to a power. So for me, it works. I don't think it pushes things too far. But if somebody wanted to argue this point, I would definitely be open to hearing that argument. Also, I don't think this is the kind of thing that translates to anime as well as other things do. Because I think on the static page, it doesn't look as ridiculous. I don't even know how they conveyed it on the page. They show him landing on the ground and the ground kind of like sinking in, and then another panel he comes back up or something. Be that as it may, and maybe he's laughing and looking crazy, and I don't know how you convey white hair versus black hair in manga, black and white. I don't know how you do that. So maybe they had to state it factually. I guess they could show it's shaded in, and now it's not shaded in. So I guess that's how you show white instead of black. You only got two shades. I guess that's what you got to do. But I just don't think it's as story breaking and ridiculous on the printed page as it is in the anime. The anime had to animate it and make it ridiculous, right? And have him dancing around and shit and bouncing off the ground and all this other shit. So I don't know, when he was I'm sure he's watched. He probably watches every episode of the anime. There's no question he does, right? There's no way he is influenced by that. So I assume these days, the last decade or two, when he's writing, he kind of pictures what it will look like in the anime as he writes, as he creates a new character, as he creates a new kind of fight, as he creates a new gear. You think there isn't any thought in his head about what's this going to look like when it gets animated? Almost has to, right? And yet he did this. He pulled the trigger on it. And I don't know. I don't think it works as well in the anime as it may have on the page. But who the hell knows? That's pure speculation. Also, what do you think about Luffy being a sort of chosen Destiny Child sort of character? Well, let me see what I said here in response. Oh, no, it wasn't me. I thought it was me. Jesus. Somebody else had a response. Okay, well, I'll look at that in a second. I don't know why I thought that was me. It said one reply, but usually it will show my little face or something, not my face, but my logo when it's me. I don't know. Anyway, so we'll get to a reply in a second. My thing is, I'm okay with it because knowing there's something out there that's controlling these fruits, right? Some kind of entity, some kind of intelligence is controlling the fruits. So Knowing that means something saw something in this kid and made a conscious choice. Okay, let's move the fruit over here through these other intermediaries to get to him and have him eat it. You'll be compelled to eat it because I see something in this kid. That's different than Mama and Papa smashed at some point, and this combination of genes smashed together, and it's the seventh son of the seventh son of the seventh son, the seventh son, the seventh son, whatever. You know, like that's just genetic luck. Or you're the firstborn son of the king, and you've been in exile all this time, and now you come back to reclaim the throne. Or you have the most midichlorians, and that's just you could say the Force chose him. So that's maybe another example of choosing. I want an intelligent being to help the choice, right? We have that here, I believe. So if he is the chosen one, then that's fine with me because it was a choice, chosen one. There was an intelligent being choice making a choice, right? Rather than what are you chosen by then? Fate? The fate? I mean, where is fate? Like what chose you? You should only be the chosen one if something made a choice, something intelligent made a choice, rather than the genes. These two people had sex and the fluids mixed together, and now here comes the baby, and it's the seven son, whatever, or it's got the midichlorians, or some kind of birthright. There's no choice being made there. That's just the luck of the draw, right? So I don't know. This is I've never seen this name before. Maya something. I don't think Luffy is a chosen one in the classic sense. Kind of what I'm saying. Like some destined savior prophecy child. Well, yeah, we also had the whole prophecy thing, which really is just, prophecy is just time travel without moving through time, essentially. Because I don't have a problem with prophecy, because here's the thing, okay? I was destined to have a reaction channel because I started a reaction channel in 2020. So if you here in 2025 go back in time to 2010 and you anoint me with the oils and tell me I'm gonna start a YouTube channel and someday I'll have 1,000 subscribers and yeehaw, yay, you are the chosen one, I prophesize you will have a YouTube channel someday and it'll be a reaction channel. You just went back in time and you already know what's going to happen. Well, people who prophesize also already know what's going to happen. They traveled in time, they just didn't physically do it. Some part of them went ahead, saw what happened, came back and reported it. So, is Paul Newman a chosen one Destiny Child? In World War II, he was part of a plane group. I can't remember if it's fighters or bombers. I think it was bombers. In the Pacific, okay? They were on an island, and I think there's like 12 planes, and he was a crew member or a pilot of one of those 12 planes, right? They're all there together. They're drinking. He catches some kind of infection there on the island. He gets really sick, right? And all of a sudden, a mission comes in, and these bombers have to take off immediately and go over there and bomb this thing, right? So he can't go because he's sick. He stays behind. The entire rest of his group goes. And we're talking about 12 planes. If they're bombers, we're probably talking about 30 to 50 men. He's the only one to stay behind. That entire group was destroyed. They all died. They were completely obliterated by the Japanese. The only reason he survived is because he got sick there on that island. Comes back and has one of the best acting careers. He's one of the most famous people out there. Huge acting career. None of that would have happened if he hadn't gotten sick. Now, is he the chosen one? Or is he just lucky, right? If you could go back in time to whenever the hell he was born, and he's old as hell, so I know he's dead now, but go back to 1900, this baby, I guess if he was in World War II, we're probably talking 33, 25, 1925, maybe he was born, maybe 1922, let's say 22. Go back to 1922. This baby is destined to be one of the country's greatest actors. Okay? Destined. Yeah, because you came from the future and you already know everything that transpired. That's the only reason he's destined. Because he navigated through life and choices were made and he screwed that whore who gave him the clap or whatever. That's why he got sick. Or he stepped on that thorn that he got the infection, or he didn't wipe his ass, or whatever happened, where he got sick. He got lucky, and he dodged a massive bullet. Like, can you imagine a survivor's guilt? The entire rest of your group is dead. Well, you talk about some survivor guilt. He probably poured that shit in every performance he had, man. So he navigated through life, and then he made choices when he got back home, and he made acting choices and took roles and worked hard, whatever, and became as big as he was. None of that is destiny. And if you can go back in time to 1922 and proclaim this as a prophecy, or if you're in 1922 and can somehow see the future and proclaim this as a prophecy, it doesn't mean he's the chosen one. It doesn't mean he's Destiny's child. It just means you can see the future. So it's possible. We have seen somebody can see the future. There is a future seeing fruit, right? Like, somebody can do that. It was in Dressrosa. So just because somebody can see the future and make a prophecy doesn't make you some kind of like chosen one. It just means they saw what you end up doing, right? So that's kind of the point I'm making here. So I don't put prophecy child in the same category as the rest of that shit. Prophecy child just means somebody has some knowledge they shouldn't have. They're cheating. They cribbed their notes, right? That's all that means. So anyway, what makes Gear 5 so powerful is that Luffy became strong enough to awaken the Devil Fruit, and that his will aligns with the will of the fruit itself. Yeah, I can see that, and we've seen other people do similar things, right? What the hell made Kato so powerful, and what made Big Mom so powerful? They probably did similar things. They awakened the fruits, and they aligned their wills with them, right? And I mentioned this before, and it is kind of irritating. I do think it's another problem with the series. Why do the bad guys never get tired? Why do they never burn up their energy and their magic? Why? Like, why can Kaido just sit there and fight after fight after fight? He's fighting this person, kick that person's ass. He's fighting this person, kiss Luffy's ass. Then he's fighting this other person, kiss this person's ass. Like, all night long. Never even stops to take a knee. He does stop to drink and cry at one point. Luffy's over here laying out, man. Laid out. And had to get, like, recovered and all this other shit. Had to, whatever. I forget. How did they bring him back? Give him more energy. Whatever. He needed a lunch and dinner break, and he needed a nap. And we've seen it before with, in Dressrosa. Like, he had to be protected for 10 minutes. How many times have we seen that shit? I'm tired of that only happening to the heroes. He's coming in for the Gear 4 punch, and he runs out of steam and he falls down. We even saw it with Kaido, right? He's coming in for the Gear 5 punch, falls out of steam, runs out, right? Collapses to the ground. We've never, ever seen a villain do that. I'm tired of that shit. Why? What is it? If you're evil, you get unlimited power? Like, no, man. If there's a limit for the good guys, there's a limit for the bad guys. So that's one of my pet peeves in this series. Let's show it me once, man. Somebody else being tired. Also, continuing the comment, I found an interesting theory on the subject of Reddit called... I found an interesting theory on the subject on Reddit called Elaborate Theory, Devil Fruits, and Inherited Will. Well, I won't be looking at that yet, but that is interesting. It kind of comes back to the Will of D, doesn't it? Yeah, there's a whole thing happening here with all this. The fruits and all this other stuff. All right, well, those are the questions and comments. We got a bonus comment. And now I'm going to go to those 2 polls I was talking about. Okay, so I edited everything, and then I went back in and I looked in, and I realized those 2 polls I were talking about, I already talked about on the podcast. Because, by the way, if you haven't seen the podcast, there's a special One Piece podcast I did a couple weeks ago. I talked for 2 hours about One Piece. One of the things I talked about was these 2 polls. It was the MVPs for the Wano arc, the hero and the villain. So, already done. So I guess we're done here. So, like I said, I only got 3 questions and a bonus comment. So that's where we're at. So that's all we can do.